clients and organisations differently and look to engage differently. And for me, this is about using this online platform, which we trust you'll enjoy. It's a learning curve, so we're looking for feedback after the event. It's all about, still about networking, getting to know one another, listening to some not-for-profit leaders, supporting our not-for-profit sector. We're joined today by a number of NFP executives and board members, so very much welcome. This is for you as well. I'm very conscious of the fact that one of the challenges of the new world is staying connected. If you're like me and used to engaging with lots of people all the time, this is a brave new world. So I was very determined that all the organisations that I coordinate or run, we adapt to this new environment. And I can only commend you all to reach out to experts in this area like Tristram to help you get across this quickly. You can't take 4 weeks to do it. You need to take about 5 days. So reach out and grow. Today's program, we've got everybody muted because we've got about 25 online today. Obviously, we're going to hear from our guest speakers. We are then going to have some tips from Tristram about how to navigate the new online world. And that's very much a high-end overview for any of our small business operators that have never really needed to be too adaptive. We're then going to hear from Paul. And I must admit, Paul, we'd only ever spoken with via email. We've been engaging online in putting this session together, and I very much learned or enjoyed learning Paul's approach to acting as the CEO of quite a thriving NFP. And I think you'll find his insights very inspirational. And I think in today's environment, we need to find inspiration where we can, because we can't do it the way we used to. And so part of my mission is to, I guess, share inspirational leaders and ideas with my group. Then we're going to break into channels. So we're going to break us into some teams of 4, and that will give us a chance to talk offline in a small group, get to connect one-on-one, and then come back to the group with a few questions. And then around 2:30, for those who need to switch off, you'll be most welcome to. And for the rest of us, we'll stay online and have a quick round the table just to introduce ourselves, what we're doing, just again to to encourage those connections. And then after the event today, we'll distribute names and emails of the attendees, encourage you all to find us on LinkedIn, encourage you all to one-on-one, reach out and connect, because we need to be doing more of that now more than ever. And our job is to help I guess facilitate all those things as best we can. Tristram, I might now call on you to give us a few of your better tips that you've been sharing with your clients in the last month or so about engaging online and sort of shifting our businesses more to a virtual platform. If I could pass over to you for some insights we'll all learn from.
Sure, thank you, Matt. So hi everyone, thank you for coming along. I know a lot of us are struggling with the workload where we're being inundated with just trying to get back to something that resembles business as usual while we're working remotely and trying to figure out how to collaborate better across the teams that we're used to working in. So I do have a few things that I want to share in terms of tips on how to work better and more effectively remotely. The caveat being obviously that we're Office 365 and Dynamics 365 specialists, so we're very much wedded to the Microsoft stack. Luckily, that still applies to most people. And one of the things that's worth mentioning now is that Microsoft have offered a free trial for Microsoft Teams, which is the tool that we're using at the moment to run this meeting, obviously, for anyone who doesn't currently have it. So a lot of people have it but have never used it. They're not even aware that they're using it. They might be using Zoom or other tools on top of their Office 365 environment. But with a free trial for anybody, you can actually see that on our website at www.365solutionsgroup.com.au. There is a page about the free trial that Microsoft are offering. So that's a really good opportunity to start using this tool and getting meetings like this happening where you can collaborate with groups of people, video share, etc. So what I'll do now is just give you a little walk through a presentation about the Office 365. Can you just confirm, Matt, that you can see my presentation now?
Yes.
Okay, so just to walk through here, one of the first things that people need to think about when working from home is that a lot of us have rushed out the door, taken our laptops with us and our mobile phones and started work. This isn't to do with technology, but this is something that a lot of people have overlooked. You need to have a work from home policy of some sort, and you need to show due diligence as an employer that you've actually provided a safe working environment, even if people are working from their own homes. So it does seem a little counterintuitive in some ways that people are working from their spaces. But it is really important. Get yourself covered by performing the checks now. So if you go to that website on the bottom of the screen, you can actually just Google Work from Home Safety Checklist Australia, and you'll find a link to maps.finance.gov.au with the rest of the address there. And it just provides a form that you can get your staff to fill in, which just gets them to tick yes or no to all these questions about what are their working conditions, do they have adequate lighting, comfortable seating, is the area free of cables they can trip over, etc. If you haven't performed this, it is actually slightly alarming, but you can be held liable for an accident in the home if someone's working for you from that environment. So it's a really important thing to think about. And it has been overlooked by a lot of people, including us, for the first week when we started working from home. So I strongly recommend you do that as a ground level before we even worry about the technology. So just very quickly to cover off the Office 365 side of things. There are so many tools within Office 365 that most people don't understand they have available to them. And what we often find is that people are using Office 365, but they're also using Zoom instead of meetings, and they're using Evernote instead of OneNote, and they're using Dropbox instead of OneDrive. So all of these tools that you can see on the screen are part of the Office 365 license. So you can, there are one or two exceptions, like Dynamic CRM is a separate license that you can add. But overall, this is the whole ecosystem. There are lots of tools available for you to use. So if you're not sure what to do, Google and YouTube will be your friend here in terms of how to use these tools to collaborate better. And I'm just going to give you a very quick whistle-stop tour of some of the ways in which you can use the Office 365 suite. So here is just a bit of a comparison between what people are often using and what they could be using. So Office 365 in the middle, you can see there are a whole bunch of tools that often have equivalents that are third party. So Power Automate, which used to be called Flow. Lots of people are using Zapier or If This Then That to make systems talk to each other. We have that out of the box. SharePoint is a great tool for sharing documents, but also building an intranet to keep everyone across what's happening. We all get enough emails. By building an intranet in SharePoint, you can actually keep people informed when they go there every day. They'll see news and updates and the sort of information that you don't really want to be clogging up the inbox. But this just gives you an example. There's no right or wrong way. So you may have a third-party tools that you need to use because they perform a specific function for you better than the Office 365 alternative. But you certainly can save a bucket of money if you're doing it all through Office 365, and particularly with NFPs at $4.10 per user per month for the business premium version, which gives you all of these tools downloadable so you can use Word and Excel, etc. on the desktop. It really is worth the investment to make sure everyone's productive. So the three core pillars, if you like, of Office 365 are security, which is a big consideration for people now working from home. You're having to expose a lot more of your systems to the outside world so that people can work more effectively from wherever they find themselves, home or in the future, cafes and remote sites. Automation, which I've just touched on with Power Automate, but SharePoint also has a lot of automation in terms of workflows to make things talk to each other. And then Power BI in terms of reporting. So reporting is really important. Everything that happens within Office 365 can be captured and reported on. So who's moved documents, who's edited documents, who's deleted items, all of these things are tracked. So it gives you really good high-level security as well in terms of what people are doing and whether they should be doing the things they're doing. Okay, so cybersecurity is, as I mentioned, a big consideration now that we're all working from home and trying to still get access to all the systems in the back end. So one of the first things is that you're going to have to expose a lot more systems to the outside world. In lots of environments, people are used to using a VPN to access some of their workloads from outside the office. But now we really need all of the tools to be available to us. That could be through setting up a greater capacity VPN. Often they're set up for just a small percentage of users, given that they're not all trying to access from outside at the same time in a normal work environment. So you've got to expose all of your systems to people working from home so they can work effectively. But obviously that means that you've got then to hit the balance between security and ease of access. You want your staff to be able to work effectively, but you've also got to make sure you protect your data. And there isn't a right or wrong position on this. It really depends on your appetite for risk as a business. So some businesses have more sensitive data that they need to heavily protect than others who really don't have anything that's, personally identifiable information or credit card details, health records, etc. So it really is something that you need to decide as a business. What is your appetite for risk? What are you prepared to expose and risk it being exposed to the outside world? The tighter you get in terms of security, the less convenient it is for users. So there's always that payoff. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that people aren't running off with your data and encrypting your information and holding you to ransom. So there are a whole bunch of tools with Office 365 that can help with that. So Office 365 has a very comprehensive list of solutions, and part of that is the idea that, because it's in the cloud, if you're hosting everything in the cloud, it's always backed up and you can recover it. Certainly SharePoint and OneDrive are really valuable tools. If you do suffer a hack where your data is encrypted, it's very straightforward to delete the encrypted files and restore the old files. So that's something that's really worth considering in this environment, because cybersecurity is a topic where you can never be bulletproof, you can never be completely invulnerable, but you can certainly mitigate it by taking steps to make it far less appealing to break into your environment than someone else's by putting up barriers. And if it does happen, then you need to be able to recover quickly. And so Office 365 has a bunch of tools in there that will help. And the last point is that multi-factor authentication is something that you absolutely have to be using now for every system that you're exposed to. So it simply means that when you log in with your email username and password, it's going to ask you for a code that gets sent to your phone. Not every time. You can do it so that it only reminds you every 60 days, and it will only then challenge you if you are logging in from a different IP address or a different browser or a different device, which it should do, because that could easily mean that someone has compromised your username and password and is trying to log in on your behalf. And there is a tool called Microsoft Secure Score. It's available in every Office 365 tenant. You can run a report to see how secure you are, and it will make a bunch of recommendations. It is a little bit IT speak. So we've actually got a tool called the Secure Score Audit, which will allow you to interpret those results. We can run that for you and show you what sort of steps you should be taking based upon your kind of organization and the data you have. So there are lots of tools there. If you need any guidance on how to set those up, again, Google is your friend. YouTube has a whole bunch of stuff to show you how to put these things in step. And on our website, we also have some guides on how to set up multi-factor authentication, amongst a whole bunch of other things, to help you be more productive. So it's worth checking that out as well. So just to talk about the collaboration tools within Office 365, Teams is the one that we're using now and is obviously for online meetings. So video, screen sharing, call recording. There is a blur the background feature now that we're all working from home, and there are often distractions with people walking behind us and kids running into the room. Blur background can be quite handy to block that out. There's a perpetual chat so that you can actually have people belonging to a team and they can collaborate on an ongoing basis so that everyone knows what everyone else is doing in the team. You can share documents through it, put together little mini projects. So it's a really powerful tool. You've also got SharePoint, which, as I mentioned before, is the document management system. It's the sort of, think of it as the replacement for your traditional file server where you put everything in one place for everybody to find. Happens to be SharePoint in the cloud rather than the physical box in your office. But it also allows you to then put a simple intranet together. You can put it, make it very complex or very simple, and you can do a lot of branding or just make it a place where you put information for people to see every day that they log in. But it's a very valuable tool for getting people on the same page now that we're all working from different places without clogging up the emails. There are also workflows within SharePoint. So simple workflows, for example, where you can make one action trigger another action. So for example, when you publish a document, there can be a workflow to go to approvals for several other people who might need to approve that document before it's publishable to everybody. So only you and the approver can see it until they approve it. So simple workflows like that. And there are certainly more complex ones that you can handle too, but those are some examples. And then digital forms, SharePoint, as well as another tool called Forms, are very good for getting rid of paperwork out of your business, so you don't have to worry about people printing things off from a home printer that may not be connected to their work device. So if you can get everything in a digital format, it just makes it far easier to collaborate across distance. Then OneNote is an excellent tool. Evernote is something that a lot of people have used in its place, but OneNote is a digital scrapbook. So digital scrapbooks basically enable you to capture information by typing in. You can make drawings in there, you can load up video and photos and so on. And because OneNote, for example, we use it in our business, it's real time, it's there for everybody. So when I go and meet a customer, I take some notes about that meeting, and then I can contact someone in the office and say, can you please just type up those notes into a summary of the meeting so that I can send that back to the customer. And they've already got the information there. I don't need to send them anything. It's available in OneNote. So that's a very powerful tool for collaboration. And then the desktop apps. A lot of people aren't aware that with Word and Excel and PowerPoint, these days you can actually collaborate with documents online together. So we've had this situation arise where we're working towards a deadline for getting a document in, and Kim might be working from her home, I might be working from my home or the office, and we can be working on the document together. I can see a little indicator of where her cursor is in the document, and I can be working somewhere else. So she might be working on the executive summary and I'll be working on the pricing, for example. So you can get groups of people working on the same document in real time through co-authoring with Office 365. So that's a very handy feature as well to get people collaborating better. And then one sort of tip that's more sort of general tech than Office is bandwidth issues. Now that everyone's working from home, the home internet services are getting slammed in every household. So even if you've kicked your kids off Netflix and stopped any video streaming, if every other household in the street's doing it, over which you obviously have no control, it can end up being a very scrappy experience. So you're quite often better off tethering to a mobile phone or using a mobile SIM in a router than you are trying to rely on the landline internet. And there's no sign that that's going to abate anytime soon with more and more people working from home. So if you have a poor internet connection at home, then the mobile might well save you. So that's really it. That's all I wanted to cover off on that section, but hopefully it's given you some ideas of some things that you can do to try and collaborate better, and given you some ideas of what is available and what's possible. Certainly we can help you if you want to know more, but you can go to our website. As I said, it's www.365solutionsgroup.com.au, and you'll find some self-help guides and some really useful tools that you can download there from the resources page, which will help you do a lot of this stuff yourselves. Okay, back to you, Matt. You're muted, Matt.
How's that?
That's better.
Now I go back to say those nice things again. No, I was just saying that Tristan's been a big help with some of our not-for-profit clients. The last few months we've had a couple that are journeying through their IT planning, really not with this current scenario in mind, but the amount of help that's needed is much greater than was initially anticipated. And I know one of the conversations that we're going to address with Paul is how he's prepared his organisation for the current scenario, and in fact how he's been preparing it for change for many years. I was speaking to a expert on telecommunications this morning about a client that had a particular problem, and he let me know that one of the consequences of offshoring all our support infrastructure, that means help desk, whether it's Telstra, Optus, or Commander, all those companies have offshored into the Philippines as of 2019. As of 2 weeks ago, I think it was, of course, they've gone into complete lockdown. So all our telecommunication support infrastructure people are no longer actually working. So if you're running larger organisations that do rely upon your telecom platforms, I do suggest you stress test problem solving because Telstra and Optus, I don't think will be there to help, and you'll need to rely upon your service providers, who might be your account managers or your third-party consultants, to fill the gaps that in the old days we'd ring up Telstra to sort out software and hardware issues. So that was just a bit of update around what's happening with the telecommunications world, which is a major service that certainly a lot of the large organisations need. Now I'd just like to welcome Paul Tomassini. I must thank Andrew Rankin, who's just recently joined the meeting from Piper Alderman. Andrew's always our gracious host when we host these things in the real world in his boardroom. Andrew, in fact, recommended Paul to us some months ago, and Paul and I have been swapping emails late in the night to sort all this out. And then in the last week, we've managed to actually get to meet each other, albeit online. I must admit, when Andrew suggested Paul and I began to talk online, I thought, gee, how exciting could it be to talk to a small not-for-profit sitting up in beautiful Ipswich? What are they doing? Well, you're going to find out an awful lot. So the best thing about our hub is, in all honesty, meeting people like Paul, who I think is very inspiring. And what we're going to go through today is, for him, normal business, albeit pivoted in some areas, but as you'll learn from Paul, nothing he's doing today is any different to what he was doing, I dare say, 6 or 7 months or years ago. In Community started in 1982. Paul's been with them for 18 years, which is a very long time. And again, normally being in an NFP for a long time normally suggests somebody that's very comfortable in a good job and is not in a hurry to go too far too quick. Paul is exactly the opposite. So welcome, Paul, to our meeting today. Internet's great coming down from Ipswich. We're going to start maybe as a starting point with a bit of background about In Community and the Tenancy Skills Institute. That'll give us all a bit of your background as well. Over to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Matt. And it's great to be here today. And internet is good here because I'm right at the moment sitting in an office. It's usually full and I'm the only one in here with fibre to the building. So I've got probably some of the best internet that any of our staff have at the moment. But look, In Community and the Tenancy Skills Institute, we're a medium-sized organisation. We've got about 25 staff on board, and as you said, we were established in 1982 as a very small organisation to service the unique needs of young people in Ipswich who are experiencing homelessness. Since then, we've grown not just in our reach in terms of our client cohort, but also a couple of years ago, we set up the Tenancy Skills Institute, which we did in partnership with the real estate industry to help meet the needs of people who are trying to enter the private rental market. And with that project, we've partnered with the state government and a heap of other partners, which I'll talk about later, to take that across Queensland. And there's plans next year for further expansion. So at the moment, we are a medium-sized organisation. So we're definitely small. And in terms of the partnerships and the organisations we work with, often we're the smallest organisation sitting at the table. But we still have quite a big impact.
Thanks, Paul. So I guess the most topical question is just how are you coping as an organisation and as a CEO with COVID-19 and everything that it's meaning to us all?
Yeah, so Matt, I guess for us, we are in a state where things are constantly changing, and I'll talk in a minute about our plan and how we're actually addressing the COVID-19 situation. But I guess a couple of things. One, I'm sitting in an office at the moment, which is normally full, but is now empty because some of our teams are working remotely already. Not all of our teams, because some of our services are essential services and those people are still working in their normal workspaces. But what we've seen, I guess, in the last couple of weeks is a real shift in some really great examples of the way our team are working together to solve problems, the way people are stepping into spaces that they're unsure of and bringing out the best in themselves and the best in each other and supporting each other to do that. In terms of service delivery, we've had a number of changes, obviously, because with restrictions, we can't do the face-to-face work that we used to do and work in the homelessness space. With the exception of our crisis shelter, our mobile teams have had to learn how to work differently. We've introduced something which we call yard yarns, which is a social distanced version of a face-to-face case management session. We're introducing more virtual support. We're utilising our brokerage in a much more flexible way. And we've had to relax some of the expectations that our service had, particularly on the time it's going to take to get client outcomes, because we know that in the current situation, what was normal 4 weeks ago is no longer normal. And probably the other thing is we're trying to keep up to date with all the information as it changes, but remain cool ourselves, because it's really important that as an organisation working with really vulnerable people, that we're able to help them remain centred and cool with what they do.
Yeah, Paul, I just asked you to comment on something you said to me earlier today, and that was the way your staff are responding to their customers, their incoming calls, and the feedback you're getting from.
Yeah. Look, sorry, you just cut out there, Matt. I just missed that last little part.
I was just asking you to respond to that conversation this morning about how your staff are dealing with your customers in terms of their attitude.
Yeah. Look, our staff are doing this really, really well. I guess it was really important for us to work with our staff to create that sense of safety for our staff, because we knew that they needed to be able to share that sense of safety with the people that they're working with. So I actually had one of our peak bodies call us up just earlier this week, and when they came through to me, they commented on how upbeat and cheery the staff member was that spoke to them, because everyone else that they'd spoken to and checked in with had a very pessimistic view of everything that was going on at the moment. So I guess it's a credit to our staff. It's a credit to how everyone is working together. I did want to share an image, but I'm just not sure if I've got it up. Let me just check to see. Am I sharing? What have I got on there, Matt?
The Corona image.
Okay, the Corona Castle. Excellent. So this was something that for our team, when we started to talk about this, so a couple of weeks ago I met with our entire organisation to talk about what COVID-19 meant for us and to talk about our management plan. And something that was really important for us was just before we had this meeting, Qantas announced that they were standing down 20,000 staff. So I was walking into a room with my staff. I'd called a whole organisation meeting to walk in to talk to them about our COVID-19 management plan the day after it had been in the media that Qantas had stood down 20,000 staff. So you can imagine there's an apprehension in the room. So I thought as a leader, my job is to create that sense of calm and to bring our staff back to that grounded position and allow them to, I guess, understand what's happening at the moment as best we can, but also to give them confidence in the way the organisation's dealing with everything. So the Corona Castle is something that came to my mind, I guess, late at night. Is it still up there, Matt, or has it disappeared now?
No, we've picked up a 365 PowerPoint. I'm not sure if Tristan can address that.
Have we got it back now?
Yeah,
I think
that's it.
Excellent.
Yep.
So the Corona Castle, why I came up with that was, I wanted something creative because I knew I was bringing a bunch of people in who weren't sure about the future. And so Steve the Llama sits on top of our Corona Castle. Steve is, he goes away with our tenancy skills trainers, and we all know that llamas are well known for spitting at people, and they're not exactly, in my experience with llamas anyway, so not the nicest, friendliest animals. But we use Steve as a tool to teach people about empathy and being a good neighbour and looking out for people. And in times like this, it's really important. So we decided Steve was going to be the guardian of our castle, and he was going to remind our staff that now more than ever, we need to show empathy towards each other and towards the people that we're connecting with. Toilet paper, not so much an issue now, but I'll tell you what, when we were doing this, toilet paper was probably the hardest thing in Australia to get. So we thought, what else to make the turrets out of than toilet paper? And also Corona, well, we put a carton of Corona in the middle because we wanted our staff to view the future, and that's a symbol of the fact that what we're going through at the moment is going to end. It's going to be a difficult road, but at the end of this, once that ends, we're going to celebrate together, and we're going to celebrate that we actually made it through this pandemic, and hopefully that we learned a lot about it as an organisation, individually, collectively, and did really well for our clients. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You're going to say, Stephen, and does that mean as a leader, does that mean you've had to become far more vocal and far more direct in your leadership style?
Look, I'd say probably the opposite.
Or more
We're
embracing?
always very relational. Yeah, very relational. And what's happened over the last couple of weeks is that relational leadership has actually come to a very different level. And the conversations that I'm having with our teams, both our remote teams and our teams that are still working in the office, it's very much about involving them in the process. But I'll just go back to that meeting that we had with our staff, because what we did is we really needed to make sure, other than just chucking a carton of beer and some toilet paper on the table, that was really just to lighten the mood. But we had a few things that we wanted to talk to our staff about there. And one was how we were going to actually approach this, because we knew that over time, services were going to look different. We didn't know exactly what they were going to look like, but we had an idea of different phases we may go through. Now, we're actually in phase 3 of our plan at the moment. So we've already gone through a couple of those quite quickly. We made sure that in that plan we had a phase 5, and phase 5 is about reopening, and it's about being agile and ready, that when this is over, when the restrictions are lifted, that we can get back to business as usual as quickly as we possibly can. And acknowledging that business as usual may look a little bit different because we're learning new stuff every day. There's a couple of other things that we did though, and we did something which is probably would most people in this time would consider counterintuitive, but we actually gave all of our staff a bonus. And it wasn't a big bonus, but what we wanted to do, that included our casual staff as well. We wanted to lead in a time of uncertainty by telling our staff, we've got your back. So we know that these times coming ahead are going to be tough. And we wanted our staff to have confidence in the organisation's capacity to be able to continue to operate regardless of what was happening with the outside forces. We did a couple of other things like unlocking all leave entitlements for staff, regardless of how long they'd been working for the organisation. We spoke to our staff about our financial position as an organisation and what it looked like in terms of our contingency planning if government funding didn't come forward or if government funding was slow. So they were confident that we could actually withstand this storm and at the end of it be prepared for that next phase to get back to business as usual. We also, at the beginning of this, we announced our plans, which we've been working on for quite some time, and the COVID pandemic has kind of dropped into the middle of this. But we announced plans for interstate expansion with 3 new sites to start in New South Wales and Victoria once all of this is over. And through that, we really encouraged our staff to, rather than get caught up in the chaos, because there was so much chaos happening at the time, to become what we call champions of calm. And they've really embraced that very well. And back to that conversation I was talking about just before with that staff member, she's really embraced that captains of calm, and is really putting that through to the rest of the team as a leader herself, but also through to the people that she's working with, because our most vulnerable people, the last thing they need is someone who's chaotic trying to support them. I just wanted to share, if I can get this one to work. This is something that I'll just go back to it. So I'm just trying to. What have we got here? Do we have the chair yoga up there, Matt?
Yes, we do, Paul.
Excellent. So one thing we've started to do with our team that are working remote, and even our team that are still in-house, is 9 o'clock every morning we have a huddle, which we're using online conferencing for, and we do a session of chair yoga. One of our team members, Nick, who's there, is actually a yoga instructor, so he's been leading us through. just a little bit of mindfulness, a little bit of awareness, but to make sure that staff are connecting, and also that they're really focusing on looking at the positive side to the day, really starting off on a good step, and then they're going off to do their work. So then that team who's working remotely, after that, they have their own huddle and set their day's work and go from there. So
thanks, Paul. Yeah, it's a great example of creating the right environment for your teams where you can't physically do it, but you're controlling it through the tools you've got and through the culture you're creating. And that Champions of Calm, I think, was a great example of setting a scene for the future and being still in a very hectic environment, which is no good for our customers. I'd like you to tell us a bit about the why piece, about why the organisation existed, and why I guess you're still so passionate about it.
Yeah. Okay. So, look, we inspire people to believe in themselves so that they can direct their own future, so they can take control. And I guess now more than ever, people need to understand that they can direct their future, because that's coming back to that Champions of Calm thing. It's really important that the people that we're supporting, and even our staff, realise that whilst they can't control what's happening with the pandemic, they can control how they're reacting with it, and they can control what they do in their day-to-day life, within reason, of course. So having our team focused around this common purpose, which they have for years now, it allows them to continue to respond to the current challenges, but also keep focused on why they're there. We see lots of teams that were, I guess, marginal, I would call them, before. Ones that weren't really focused around a central purpose, and it was a little bit every man for themselves. And they're really struggling now because they were struggling in good times. And the work that we've done in the past leading up to this to get everyone focused on that common purpose means that everyone still comes to work focused on that common purpose, and they're there for the right reason. The really important thing, and I see a lot of people scrambling at the moment to change their business, to respond to what's happening. And there seems to almost be some sense that they need to change their purpose or why they're doing what they're doing. But the why doesn't change. It's just how you actually fulfill your why that changes. So our purpose still needs to be the same. But what we're doing now is we're reinventing the way in which we can actually fulfill our purpose, because we've got further restrictions in place, which means that the way we did business last month isn't going to be the same next month, for some time anyway.
Yeah, so the message there is, as a CEO, we still have the same needs for our clients to fulfill. We just need to be smart enough to work out how to do it under the new circumstances. Absolutely. Which is the way forward. The other thing you mentioned earlier, Paul, which I took note of, typically not-for-profits struggle with culture, and they struggle with staff retention, and they struggle with keeping good people. And we see the consequences from outsiders working with NFPs. I was inspired, I guess, to learn that when you started, staff turnover maybe every 6 months or 8 months was the normal length of employment. But in the last 7 or 8 years, it's now almost 8 years, I think you said, on average, with your current team.
Yeah, it's about 8 or 9 years. And I'll tell you a story about Mark. Mark's a guy that he was actually the first person that I interviewed. So I'd been with the organisation for 2 years. And in 2004, I just happened to be the last person standing. So I was given the keys and said, here you go, you're the manager now. And as happens in a lot of not-for-profits. And I'd come from a service delivery position, and we went through interviewing. And at that point in time, Mark was one of the first people that I interviewed. And our board, who'd been there for a couple of years in the organisation, they used to have a question that was, how long do you think you can commit to the organisation? And I guess that should have been a warning sign right from the beginning. But when we interviewed Mark, he thought about that question, and he said, look, I think I could probably do 2 years. I couldn't give you any more than 2 years, but I think I could commit to 2 years. And I think that was what got him the job, because I was so happy that someone was actually going to do 2 years instead of what they were used to. Because, like you said before, if we were getting 1 to 2 years out of staff prior to that, it was that was an exception to the rule. And what happened then? Mark became part of the team, and Mark has been he's still with us. He's the state manager at our Tenancy Skills Institute now. And he's been part of this journey of our development of our organisational culture as have many of other people. About half of our team have done more than 10 years with us. So I guess in building that culture, it's really focusing around being clear on our purpose. That's really important first. But acknowledging that you can't just drop in and fix a culture with one thing. It's everything that the organisation does fits together to create that culture. So I guess for myself, I was, I think, 24, 25 years old when I was dropped into the position of manager of a community organisation responsible for homeless young people. So I guess I didn't have a lot to start with in that respect because I hadn't gone down the line of wanting to be a leader or wanting to be a manager. I was actually enjoying doing the work that I was doing in service delivery. But what I did was I started to look at all the examples of bad leadership that I was seeing. And I thought the best place for me to start was to see what I didn't like, what my colleagues found to be really annoying, to be really difficult, and making sure that I wasn't doing those. And what we did was we started to create conversations within our team. We invested in our people. We involved our teams in the process. So this wasn't something that was done in isolation. Everyone was part of building that culture who was there. Now, some people along the way dropped off, and I call it weeding the garden, I guess. We've got to weed our garden, but first of all, we've got to know what are the weeds and what are the flowers. And, that's a learning process. When you're new, the longer you're around, the longer you're doing this, you start to work out the difference a lot quicker and you start to know the right questions to ask. But we had to acknowledge our challenges as well. And one of our biggest challenges as an organisation, and we provide residential services, that was primarily what we did at the time, was communication amongst staff, which is ironic considering we were teaching young people how to communicate as part of our work every day. But we developed a tool which we called a commitment to communication because we had a lot of challenges with that team at the time of the way in which they communicated or didn't communicate each other, but then expected things to change. In that, we had things like we didn't blame, we became more relational. Everyone was part of that journey, so everyone had a responsibility. And that led us to starting to talk to each other differently as a team. And it wasn't about who was leader and who was a member of that team. Rank played nothing to do with it. It was around everyone in that team needing to have a really good foundation of communication. We got a couple of years into that and we actually got rid of that document because we no longer needed it. We'd actually sorted out that problem, and then there was enough build-up of that culture within the team to keep that going. We changed the way in which we recruited, and this was, I guess, a pivotal moment for the organisation because we used the, I guess, more traditional way of selection criteria and looking at people's resume as the primary source of merit for the position, and the actual person sat down below that. So what we ended up with was some people who could write really great applications, but when it came to the work they were doing, it wasn't that great after all. So we really shifted that, and we had one staff member, I remember, who really challenged us on that, and we brought him in as a relief casual staff member. And when we recruited him, his application wasn't very strong, but he had some good experience, and there was some good referees on there. But his written application wasn't very strong. But when we started to talk to him, we unpacked a whole range of stuff with him that was absolutely unbelievable in terms of the way he connected with people and exactly what we were looking for in our organisation. So he did have the skills, he just wasn't writing them well in his application. So we really focused on how we actually had our application process, how we interviewed staff and how we brought people on. We changed our mindset to looking at things as a more infinite game rather than looking at what we could win now. We all decided that we're in this for the long run, and we're going to do this for a long time. And we had to create a culture that accepted and enhanced that. But we also had to understand that we weren't always going to win. We weren't always going to get the credit or the glory for everything. And as part of that, it was about putting our clients in the centre. So we often talk about the stories of our clients win rather than whether or not we have done well as an organisation. We made that whole of organisation approach, and what that led to was the team that helped to build this have become the custodians of it. And what that means now, when someone new comes into the team, they're not just inducted by whoever's responsible for HR or inductions, they're inducted by the whole team over time, who inducts them into the culture, and then they become part of that culture. We have seen more recently that we brought someone in who wasn't a good cultural fit, and it was very clear very quickly that person didn't fit well. They didn't feel like they fit well either, and that resolved itself really quite quickly without any interventions, which in the past we would have had to have done. So it changes a lot of the things we do. It changes things like performance management. It changes things. We very, very rarely get to needing to do performance management, because a lot of these things are addressed through the communication, through the way in which we do business. And it also, I guess, changed the way in which we review performance. So, your annual performance reviews and what that actually looks like as well.
Thank you, Paul. I know you can speak for hours on that subject, which is obviously going to be one of your pet subjects, and it's terrific to see in a relatively small not-for-profit you're doing so many good things right. I'd now ask you to explain a little bit about your business model around the Tenancy Skills Institute. So it's quite unusual for a not-for-profit to embark on a business enterprise. So just explain how you work with your partners around Queensland.
Yeah, look, definitely. So when we set out to develop the Tenancy Skills Institute, we had a vision for something that didn't exist in Australia, and really is something that doesn't really exist anywhere in the world, and that was to develop a competency-based training package for tenants to assist them into the private housing market, but to do that in partnership with the real estate industry. So there's a lot of connection with the private sector there. As I mentioned before, with these things, we're often one of the smaller players around the table, and we're okay with that, because I guess we've made a decision, rather than to get big, we decided to get good. So we decided our focus was on being the best version of ourselves we could, and it fits with that infinite mindset as well, rather than being the biggest organisation we could become. So we knew that when we wanted to do this, we're local to a very small part of Queensland. There's a map sitting behind me here which has all of our current regions on it. And of those, we only actually operated in one, and we have 20 regions. So the way for us to do that, to get economy of scale, to be able to do it well, was really to work with regional partners around the state, to find those early adopters that were able to, they got what we did, believed in what we were doing, and also wanted to be a part of it. So in doing that, we actually give a fair amount of power back to local communities to help guide this program in their own area. And we knew that this is, again, relational based. So there was a lot of relationships that existed there and needed to exist. We focused on our early adopters rather than focusing on the people who didn't quite get what we were doing, because we knew that we needed to get traction. We needed to get that going well. So we needed to find the people who just got what we were doing, and we invest time into them, and we give them more power in terms of being able to guide and lead this in their own communities. To date with this project, we've got close to 130 parties involved in it, including the state government, the Residential Tenancies Authority, the REIQ, the real estate industry, and about 45 community organisations who we have service level agreements with, who deliver the training on our behalf. And I'll acknowledge, because I know Andrew Rankin's in the room here as well, I'll acknowledge Andrew and Piper Alderman for the work that they did supporting us to get those agreements in place. So we thank Andrew and his crew for that. So yeah, I guess the model behind that, it was really around developing those relationships and trying to create a program which was able to be delivered across a very broad area, but was responsive to the needs in those local areas as well.
Yeah, very innovative, and it's a good set of legals helps keep everyone in line, I'm sure. And do you partner with real estate firms at that level, or is it more the community organisations that are the deliverers?
Yeah, so of that 130 groups who are involved, over 80 of those are real estate agencies in local areas. So we've got some big brands, we've got some smaller brands as well. At last count, the rental roll under management from those 80 organisations was somewhere around about 50,000 properties under management. So for our graduates, and the whole idea of working in partnership with the real estate industry was to create a pathway into the private rental market. So for our graduates, it really helps with that.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Very well thought through. I guess that leads me on to the never-ending, I guess, challenge for a person in your role of change management and your approach to, I guess, the last 18 years of change and change management as you see it. Yeah.
So I guess, look, my experience with change management is often it's an interesting thing, but often it's done too slowly. There's a lot of talk around change and a lot of, I guess, process. But what's often missed is that when people feel safe, they're far more open to change. So the key and where we invest our time is creating a sense of safety within our team and creating a sense of trust, because then when we do want to talk about change, they're much more willing to enter that conversation, and they're much more willing to embrace that change. We've got a couple of examples where we actually changed our whole operating system from a PC-based operating system to a Mac operating system across our whole organisation. And that was with probably 80% of our team had never used a Mac before. And we were able to do that. We're able to take people along the journey. And that was something which was adopted extremely quickly. But there was an underlying level of trust there within the organisation around why we were doing that and around what we could expect from it. We also did some other things like, use Mac Mini so we could put their normal monitor and their normal keyboard and so forth in. And back in Queensland, everyone would remember the Newman government era where the not-for-profit sector was under a lot of pressure to reinvent themselves and to do things differently. And this was another time when there was a lot of anxiety within our team. But what we did was we sat down with our team and we said to them, look, things are likely to change in the future. If you could do anything now differently to what you're doing it right now, what would your job look like? And that was met with silence because no one wanted to talk about it. So we went back and we went back with the question again, and I said, look, if you could do anything differently in your job and you still had a job, what would it look like? And once we'd addressed that issue of safety, all the ideas came out and we actually designed a restructure together. And the whole team was part of that restructure. Everyone spoke about who could do different jobs, who would fit best in the jobs. There wasn't one redundancy. Everyone got the positions that they were keen on, and then everyone was able to get to work. And from that, the staff feedback from that process was that their biggest fear was that they would be made redundant, because when they'd heard restructure in the past, it meant redundancy. But what they got out of it was the opportunity to actually do things that they'd wanted to do for a very long time, but didn't feel they had an opportunity to do because of the structure of the programs that they were in. So I guess for us, change isn't a big thing because we're constantly in that state of change, but we also don't change just for the sake of changing. We need to be able to tell that there's going to be a much better outcome on the other side. And look, our team's in a significant space in change at the moment in terms of the way they're having to do business, and they're handling it without any problems at all and coming up with innovative solutions every day.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I'm hearing a lot about shared vision, culture, open communication, trust, and a lack of any sort of fear, which is obviously a key ingredient. How would you suggest other organisations create more innovative organisations in respect of the clients we work with or the firms we're working in? In respect of your experiences with innovation?
So I guess we need to be courageous as leaders and I guess have that understanding around courage and vulnerability. So Brene Brown's done a lot of work on that, and there's some great, there's even something on Netflix that she's done. So courage and vulnerability is really important when it comes to innovation and to the way in which we run our organisations. It's important to play to people's strengths. And a few of my staff have come up to me recently and said, look, you have a knack of being able to identify what someone's strengths are and stream them into that place so that they can actually become the best version of themselves. So I guess what that means in terms of, if we want to be truly innovative, we might employ someone to do something, but then find out they have skills and aspirations in another area. And if we can support that as an organisation, we have a much better chance that that this stuff will actually really take off for us. We also need to understand that, are people innovators? Are they early adopters, or are they something else? And when it comes to different parts of workplace or different parts of their life, they may sit into different categories. So if we expect that we're employing someone to innovate, they may be really innovative in certain areas, but when it comes to other areas, they may actually be a laggard in that area. And it's really about understanding that and opening up a conversation. Also, what we know is, if we're trying to innovate just to win, then we're probably going to fail, because we're just trying to make something shiny if we're innovating to win. And the whole point in innovation is to try to do things better, not to just try and make something that's shiny that's going to only last for us a little period in time. And really, innovation without our early adopters is nothing. It's just an idea. So we need to involve everyone in the process. So all of our stakeholders, whether they're internal or external, and we need to allow those people who get it to have power and influence. And that's not about them owning it and taking over and controlling it, but that's about allowing people to actually be able to have some kind of influence and input, and they can then become a champion of that as well, because that's what creates an innovative idea into something which actually gets traction and takes off.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I often hear of other consultants working within the larger organisations where they, for fear of change, they don't make a decision. Something shiny comes along down the corridor, they jump at that just to be seen to be doing something with no real strategy, and there's no long-term improvement made. So it's great to hear how you're sort of adapting, I guess, in a nimble environment, which does suit, but you're driving the bus with the right people in the right direction. Perhaps we'll just finish with, where's the future lie for in community and the Tenancy Skills Institute?
Yeah, so look, at the moment, we've been dropped into an area which is forcing us to probably address some of those little things that we hadn't done before. So for example, our digital transformation, we were partway through. So one of our teams, who is the first team to go remote, had already been doing it for some time. So it's really around, we're now challenging ourselves to become the best digital version of ourselves that we can. And we know through that we're going to learn and we're going to refine our services even differently. We are excited about what the future looks like post this pandemic that we're currently going through, and everyone's obviously in the same boat there. We are planning our expansion into other states, and that was planned to start on July 1. It's obviously going to be delayed now because there'll still be travel restrictions most likely in place by then. We're in the process of negotiating a new funded program to expand our services. So I guess counter to what most people are probably experiencing at the moment, we're looking at some expansion in there as well. We're remaining optimistic. That's, I guess, a key point for us for the future. We need to remain optimistic, and the morale level within our team at the moment is very high. And I guess we're supporting our team to make sure that we're ready to get back to business as normal, or business as the new normal, when this is all over. Because what we're seeing is a lot of organisations that maybe haven't managed this as well, and a lot of companies that haven't managed this very well, they're already starting to see the signs of cracks within those companies. And the risk for vicarious trauma, the risk for compassion fatigue at the moment is significantly high, particularly when we're working with the most vulnerable people. So making sure we've got supports around that, because we have a future focus. We always do as an organisation, and that's where our team's pointed. And you mentioned before, everyone on the bus, everyone pointing in the right direction, and the driver going in the right direction. And I'll credit John Knight from the Business Depot for the one that he adds onto that, and that is that no one's hanging out the window grabbing posts as you're driving along. So we make sure that everyone's in that same direction, and that no one's pulling against that. And if we see that, we bring that back into line as quickly as we can. But the future for us, Like I said before, our goal is to be good, not to be big. And growth comes as a result of being good. And the future, we will definitely look a little bit different to what we do now. But we don't have a particular goal of being a particular size. We just have a particular goal of having a really good social impact, a great team, a great focused team, and making a big difference in the lives of the people that we work with.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. We haven't got time for it today, but in some of our earlier discussions, you talked about the way you measure social impact. So I'll put you on notice, and I'll put our audience on notice that we'll have another session another day, and I'd love to talk about how you measure social impact, which for us NFP supporters, it's so important to see how a good NFP can get a good return on our support and your resource use. But we haven't got time for that one today, but we'll put that as a future reference. The next thing we're going to do is, Trish, I'll hand over to you. We're just going to get some questions through the chat functionality of Paul. We've got about 20 online today, so we can't have an open forum. We just never get anything done with communication. But Trishman, can you just guide us through using the chat functions on Teams, please?
Sure thing, Matt. Excuse me. So if everyone has on their screen with Teams, if you're looking at the little toolbar at the bottom, which should have a red circle on the far left showing that we're recording the session, and a red hang up option on the right. In from that, we've got a little icon with two bodies, which is hide or show participants, and then we have a chat window next to that with a little dialog box. If you click on that, you should then see that there's a little chat window comes up on the right hand side. So I'm just going to put a note in there so everyone can hopefully see this. So yeah, if you've got any questions, please enter them in the chat window to the side there. So I've just sent that through, so hopefully you can all see that. We have one person at least joined us from a mobile phone, so they're not going to be able to see that, obviously, they're just hearing the audio. But most other people should be able to see the chat window. So hopefully, if anyone's got any questions, they can place them there.
Tristan, do you want to lead off with the question whilst we're waiting for the chat function to get going?
So Paul, you've obviously done a lot of really innovative work, which is excellent to see, and just what's needed in this space. What would you say was your number one tip for how to deal with the remote working situation? So you obviously got a very positive culture and a real go get them, the can-do attitude. But what's the restriction that you're finding most difficult to work around with remote working?
I guess the biggest restriction, the biggest challenge that we have at the moment, and I think everyone is having this, is the internet. The internet is constantly causing some challenges for us. But the other thing, and I saw, and I believe it was a post on LinkedIn that someone had just this week around people who were working remotely feeling micromanaged. And, one of the challenges that we have, and one of the things we need to resolve is how we support our remote team without actually looking over their shoulder too much any more than what we normally would. So one of the things we're doing is, I've said to my team, I'm going to personally call them once or twice a week, but that's to check in rather than to check up. So I'm checking in with them just to see how they're traveling with remote work. And I guess we've got the advantage that in the last 12 months with the Tenancy Skills Institute delivered a program all around Queensland, we've spent a lot of time on the road. Personally, this financial year, I think I've spent 60% of my time out of the office, and our other staff, some of them are probably up to around 40 or 50% of their time out of the office. So we've already been doing this for a while with, things like having our shared drive in order, having the documents that are needed so that people can work remotely properly. They were some of the challenges that we had to come up against when we first started. But definitely as we move forward in this space, really making sure that we're providing the best support to our staff, and through things like our morning huddle and just checking in with people, and also trusting that, they were doing the job when they're in the office, they're still going to be doing it when they're at home.
Yeah, I'd just add to that one thing that that we're doing that might be seen as micromanaging by some organisations, but it's actually kind of designed to be the opposite, is that every morning we set up a perpetual meeting for the day within Teams, so that everyone can see everybody else and be able to say, you know, reach out and say, for example, hi, I've got a question, can you help me? We take on a lot of interns in our business, and when they're first starting, they obviously need more assistance, and we found it works pretty well to be able to have everyone on chat, because then you can just simply reach out just as you would swivel the chair and say, have you got 5 minutes, or can you let me know when you're free for a question? We can do exactly the same thing on Teams. So it's not about a big brother policy of making sure you're online and you're working, because pretty soon this is the new normal. People are going to figure out that if you're gorging on Netflix, that your job's going to disappear. So I don't think that's really the issue here. I think it's more about enabling people to be productive, and that's one thing Teams is really good at, being able to get everyone to reach out to each other and just say, hi, I've got a question. And if the person they're reaching out to isn't free, everyone else gets to see the chat and might be able to intervene and say, actually, I can help you with that. So that's one tip that I suggest that you know, people might be wanting to adopt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Tristram. Looks like we haven't got too many questions coming on chat. Is that right?
No, so we haven't had any so far.
And that's okay, because we can give Paul a break for a minute, and we can move on to our small group discussions, where the concept here, everybody, was to break into probably 3 groups. I'm just going to talk to Kim. I've allocated some team leaders to try and direct the little mini groups we're going to break up into. So I've got Sharon Musker from Wise Up, who's one of our long-term supporters, Tristram, who's been helping us with our online today, and I'll ask David McDonald to play a role. David's a senior management consultant who's great at leading people and getting things done. And the plan is to break into some small groups, and I'm going to pass across to Kim in a minute to explain what we're going to do. Perhaps discuss 2 or 3 of the key points you've taken out of Paul's discussion today, and then the team leaders can perhaps feed back those 2 or 3 key points to us at the end of our 10-minute session, and then we'll recompete. Are you right there, Paul?
Yeah, I just saw Gordon has a question. So at the end of this strange time, will organisations in general continue with the IT solutions? And I guess the way I see it is organisations that are fit for the future, I guess we could say, will probably find much better ways of doing things. But I guess I see that there's probably organisations that I can see the cracks in already that I would be concerned as to whether they'll make it through to the end of this and be able to actually function as an organisation at the end. If culture was not great in the first place, if the organisation wasn't strong, this is going to put a lot of stress on, and they are going to revert to micromanagement of staff when they can't actually see them in the room. So I think we're going to see in organisations where things aren't great, I think we're going to see that amplify, and in organisation where things were good, I think we're going to see that amplify as well. So what I see is a split, and I don't see this based on size of organisations either. I think size is irrelevant because culture doesn't come from the size of your organisation. So some little ones, some big ones, I don't think it's going to be related to size. I think it's going to be related to leadership and culture within those organisations. I think our IT solutions, we were already sitting on that space anyway. So, definitely for us, this is pushing us into finding a couple of the solutions that were our pain points before. And they'll definitely continue past this because I think we're going to find much more innovative ways of doing this.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Kim, I might just get you to take over and set us into those 3 subgroups if you're ready to engage, and just explain how we're going to jump onto those links that you're going to put up for us in a minute.
Yes, certainly. Thanks, Matt. Just to confirm, did you want to do it in groups of 2 or 3? I think if we do 3, there'll be about 4, maybe 5 people in each, considering we're part of that 17 as well. Otherwise, if we do groups of 2, there'll be about 7 people. You are still muted, Matt. Sorry, I didn't get your response then.
I think we do 3 groups and 5 each, 4 each.
Yep.
Just that way they'll have plenty of time to talk.
Yeah, so we probably should keep it to about 5 minutes or so, just wary of the time, and that's probably with a smaller group like that. It'll be fairly quick for us to just all have a quick chat, so that way we can still get round the table so that everyone can have a bit of a sort of minute pitch on who they are and what they do, just so everyone knows who else is on the call and where they fit in. So okay, Kim, who do you want to tell us where we should be going?
Yeah, definitely. Matt, sorry, you said you had someone specifically in mind to run the third. I'm happy to, but didn't
David,
you?
David McDonald, if you could put him in place of one of the other parties who didn't turn up. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so sorry.
No, you go, Kim.
So I was just going to say that the split ups then, if we get 4 people for each, so if we get into breakout meeting 1, if we have Adam, Andrew, Dr. Sathiva and Paul, if you guys wanted to jump into breakout room A, which I've just pasted a link in there. So if you open up that chat function, you'll see a link to breakout A, and if that can be led by David. That first one, sorry, at the top it says led by Peter, but led by David. If you can join that one as well, and you can all then have that chat in that space, and then I'll share the other 2 links as well.
So sorry, Kim, just to check, that was Adam, Andrew, David, Satya, Ramakrishnan, and was that it? That 4, or did we have someone else in that group?
I was going to say if Paul wanted to join, he can jump into that one as well. Okay,
no problem.
And everybody turn your mute button on so you can talk.
Exactly. And then in the second group, which we'll have led by Sharon, if we can have Fiona, Gordon, Lawson, and Sharon jumping into that one there. We've got those 4.
And I'll join that one too, Sharon. So
Great.
I actually don't have the addresses coming up in my chat window. Sorry, I don't have the meetings appearing.
Yeah, I do.
No, I don't know what's happened there.
So in chat you can see those, Matt, but Tristram can't.
We're down to C. Yes.
Yeah. Could you maybe just email me that link for my one, Kim? Because I don't know why the chat's maybe it's stuck with the internet. I'm not sure.
Sure. And in the third meeting there, run by Tristram, will be Liam, Marcos, David, and Thomas, the VMR president. I'll just share that link to you as well, Tristram. It is in my calendar, but I'll share it with you as well specifically.
Team leaders just talking about top 3 messages from today, which will feed back into the group once we're finished, and perhaps how it's relevant to what you're doing as consultants or business operators. So thanks everybody. We'll see you in the teams, and then we'll come out in about 5 minutes.
Are we all in?
Hi Sharon, Gordon here.
Oh, hello Gordon, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Just taking a little bit to work this out. I had the courier come to the door and I missed the last sentence of what Matt was saying, so the joys of working from home.
I haven't got a camera at the moment, and you're probably aware things like webcams are totally out of stock everywhere, including online.
Yes, that's.
Is that a couple of people joining down there? I can see some. They're not very clear. I can see yourself, and there's 2 boxes on my screen, which I can't tell if that's 2 more people going in now.
No, well, I can't see anyone else in there.
I thought someone else was coming in.
So Gordon and Sharon, sorry, this is Kim here. Did you see the separate link in the chat? So
I clicked
chat
on.
box
Sorry.
3 specific links.
Yeah, I clicked on these straight away, Kim.
Okay, great. So where we're talking right now is actually in that that main meeting where Matt was just presenting. So if you click on click into the join meeting, it should open up a new meeting, and then this meeting will appear as a little hold box that you can click back into in 5 minutes.
Okay, so can you hear me now, Gordon?
Yep, I'm still in that same one though. I hadn't changed. We're still in the. I've lost my link again, but I clicked on it, Kim. If you're still there at the beginning, and nothing happened.
Okay, well.
Sorry, Kim. More actions
Right.
related to that.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Someone in the meeting should let you in soon.
Oh, right.
Yes,
okay.
That's what I've got too. So maybe, have you let us in, Kim?
I'll make sure that everyone's gone and let in. Give me a sec.
I seem to be in a holding pattern somewhere.
Is that Sharon? Gordon here. I can hear you, but I went back and tried to go into meeting B again. And
I've tried it twice as well. So
yeah, I think we're just waiting for someone to actually accept it. Kim has to accept it in to get into that meeting.
Yeah.
The whole new world.
It is, Gordon. It can be a bit daunting. This is my first meeting on Teams, so I'm
same.
unsure of how this all works as well. But I guess half the world is doing it, so surely we'll be able to work it out.
Exactly. Bit of patience. And
Gordon, tell me about yourself.
I'm the treasurer currently for Volunteer Marine Rescue Brisbane. We're based at Shorncliffe.
Yes, yes.
So we're trying to be busy every day interpreting some of the mixed messaging from things like the volunteer organisations, Marine Safety Queensland, the Water Police, general health directives, and trying to keep everyone informed, I suppose, so that everyone as in the organisation first, and then so that we can put out messaging via social media so that the boating public will know at least what we are doing and be confident in us.
Yeah, so I did read, I don't know whether it was I read or I saw it on the news, but understand you can only go out on the water if you're going to fish for food, fish to eat. Is that
Yeah.
how?
It was unfortunately it was a mixed message in their rush to get it out, because what they're looking at, of course, is that it's a Queensland-wide directive, so they're trying to allow for remote Indigenous communities that fish every day for their families and for their community.
Right.
Like because it doesn't, commercial fishing is fine, that's essential, so that continues with anyone with a commercial license. But of course, what we're worried about then with the mixed message is that everyone thinks, which has been happening, is like the beaches, it's the boat ramps are crowded and the water's crowded with people. Oh, someone there.
No, not in yet, Kim.
No, it's just me, Lawson here, but I think we'll just be on hold for a while.
Okay, hi Lawson, it's Gordon. I'm waiting to go into meeting B as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, who else have we got there?
I think it's just myself, Lawson.
Oh, Lawson. So it's Sharon.
It's God knows what I did. All right. Bye.
And Sharon, you're...
Yeah, so Wise Up Energy Solutions. So we help businesses reduce energy costs. So we work as business energy strategists. So not just looking at lower market rates, but really looking in behind the electricity bills and contracts.
Yes.
Looking at the data and what that means, and it brings in a whole raft of really holistic opportunities to reduce those costs when we take that sort of bigger approach.
Yes, interesting.
So really starting with an audit of the last 12 months worth of bills and contracts, and that breaks down where we can find the holes or the leakage, and planning then to get the best outcome when we get to the end of this. So there can be different strategies for the one business, and that may be implemented over a period of time. Sometimes we're lucky enough to be able to find those quick wins, which gives immediate savings, immediate cost reduction. Other times we need to balance that off with a longer term strategy. But all along, it's really educating to support and give back some empowerment, because really we've been very captive buyers of energy in the past, and now we really need to take back some of that control and put our business into a position where we're the buyer. And to do that, we just need a little bit of help to understand the market, to understand the actual consumption, and what the different contracts mean. So just piecing it all together and advocating for the customer.
Sharon, if I could just jump in there quickly. We're going to do a round robin of all the participants at about 2:30, where we can get to I guess explain what everybody's doing. Lawson and Gordon, are your videos cameras turned on, or you haven't got that capacity?
I don't have a camera, a webcam.
That explains that. Is that
sorry.
you, Lawson?
Yeah, mine's off, but I won't be here beyond 2:30. I've got another conference call.
That's okay. No, that's all right. Sharon, I was going to ask you if you'd like to do a 30-second vote of thanks to Paul when we get back online in the main group.
Yep. Okay.
That's why I wanted to join this group, to be honest, just to give you a little bit of a heads up. Just simple and to the point. Then we'll have a round robin.
We're having a bit of a chat to see who else was there waiting. So if we can't get in, is that the outcome?
Yeah, I couldn't get into the group. Could you? That side chat, the side team.
Well, yeah, this is the side team.
No, we're in the main community, I think. Something wrong with that link.
Sharon and Lawson and I, Matt, have still been waiting to get in, so we were chatting ourselves. Anyway. No,
that's fine. That's the whole idea. It doesn't matter where you're chatting, because I found the link, but no one was there, and I couldn't get out of it. So that's all right. We're just learning how to use this system a bit more effectively. Gordon, where are you from?
VMR Brisbane, same as Thomas.
You're the treasurer.
That's correct. Yes.
Sorry, I'm just putting names to email addresses. Welcome along. Thanks for joining us. Lawson, I guess you guys are all. Lawson, you're working from remotely, I guess, eh?
Unfortunately, I've got to go, everyone. But thank you all for your time, and really appreciate it.
We hope to get Ben from your Sydney office talking in a couple of weeks to us too, so we'll get you back online for that.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Lawson. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Lawson.
Thanks, Lawson.
Bring us back. They're going to bring us back to the main group, I expect, anytime soon. So part of the challenge has been getting teams to function within these multi-channel environments, which we've managed to do, but it's been a little bit challenging, but we got there at the end of the day. And Gordon, what business are you in when you're not involved with being the treasurer?
In the past, I'm semi-retired, but in the past 20 years since GST, or prior to GST, I started a bookkeeping business and became a BAS agent. And before that, I was Ansett Airlines, so I'd still be with Ansett if they were around. So I would hate to see Qantas or Jetstar go down, or any Virgin.
Or Virgin, more the point. I don't think Qantas is going anywhere fast, but
yeah,
they can't exist in an environment where you can't travel.
No.
Although I tell you, a current problem is I've got a client needing to ship items from the US. That was going to cost $3,000 3 weeks ago, and today's it's $15,000, which I guess that's a function of lack of flights.
Yeah, there's no capacity.
Yeah. So he got a hell of a shock when he tried to reschedule it, and the price went from $3,000 to $15,000.
And that's where everything grinds to a halt for a while. So the startup, I think, as the politicians are well aware, is going to be not that quick.
Is now exiting.
So, guys, I think we've got most people back in. I'm just looking at the participants list. We've lost a few, but I don't know if they're still in a breakout session.
Lawson signed off. A few people, I think, had to sign off for other meetings.
Yeah, sure. So, Thomas, are you back in this meeting?
Tristram, I believe I'm back here.
There you go. Yep. Okay. And Marcos, you're here as well.
Yeah, I'm back here.
Okay, fantastic. So it looks like we're all basically back. So should we throw to?
Are you going to change the screens?
So I was just going to say, do you want me to just run through and get everyone to do a quick introduction
of
who they are? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, please.
So look, I won't waste time going through me. You've obviously heard enough from me today. You know who I am, what I do. So maybe if we can just get everyone to unmute themselves for a minute or so to give them a bit of an idea of what you do. So Adam, being first on the alphabetical list, if you'd like to kick off, and then we'll go to David after that. Adam, could you just give us a bit of an intro? You're on mute at the moment, so you'll need to unmute yourself with that little microphone icon on the toolbar. So if you click on the meeting anywhere in the screen for the Teams meeting, you should see the toolbar come up at the bottom with a little mute icon, microphone icon halfway across the toolbar. Okay, Adam, we might come back to you. David, are you there? David, can you unmute yourself? I can see you are on mute at the moment. Oh, Adam, did you come off mute? Adam, are you there? Can you hear us? Okay, I can see he's not on mute any longer, but we can't hear you, Adam. So again, let's just try David. David, have you got your audio sorted out? Still on mute at the moment. Okay, let's try next on the list, Fiona. Are you there, Fiona?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Okay, let's have your little 1 minute intro, please.
Yes, sure. So my name is Fiona Caritas. I'm the CFO for Guide Dogs Queensland. And was that all that you wanted?
Oh, just
or did you want?
Just a little bit of what you're doing in the business, or just a sort of 30 seconds. This is what we're currently up to, or the challenge we're facing, or something along those lines.
All right. So we have we've got our pandemic plan enacted and our business continuity enacted. And we have commenced our communications plan with updates from the CEO and the GMs on a weekly basis. We've now had for 3 weeks transitioning people working remotely, which currently is working okay. We've got Zoom and Teams enacted. The current challenge is servicing the clients. So just around the fear factor with clients and PPE, etc. But I guess that is a challenge for all community services.
Yes.
And I guess the fundraising also, you know, community events, etc.
Yeah, fundraising certainly seems to be a
challenge
universal.
also.
Yeah, lots of organisations I've spoken to have seen their donations fall off a cliff right now because everyone's a little concerned about what happens next week, next month, and you know, for the coming months for themselves financially.
And just so people know, I'm not sure if Fiona introduced herself, but Fiona's the CFO from the Guide Dogs.
Yeah, so she did cover that at the beginning. All right, thank you very much, Fiona. So just quickly flick back to Adam. Have you sorted out your audio now?
Not yet.
Yes, you have.
We can hear you.
Oh, have I?
We can hear you, yes.
Oh, okay, that's good. That was an accident.
All right, so if you could just give us a 1-minute intro, please.
Yeah, so I guess I'm an investment risk specialist, background in wholesale funds management with BHP and QIC. I guess history of telling big super funds where to invest and why across equity, debt and real estate markets. Anything from feasibilities, valuation. I've worn other hats across the seniors living, aged care, corporate governance and compliance issues. And recent expertise in business continuity and succession planning with family-owned businesses.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Adam. David, have you managed to figure out how to unmute yourself? No. Okay. We might just. Oh yeah, there you are. Yeah, we've got you.
Yeah, no, you won't believe this. We get 100 megabit per second all the time, and during this session, the Wi-Fi has dropped out 4 times.
Typical. That's the way these things go.
Yeah, Murphy's Law.
Yes. So, David, if you could just give us a 1-minute intro, please, on who you are and what you do. Oh, you're on mute, Matt.
Dave, you muted again, I think.
Yeah, you're on mute again.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm a partner at i3 Australia. We were formerly Performance Improvement Partners. We're a full-service firm in the vein of PwC, KPMG, etc., just without the external audit focus. Primarily, we will focus on just what we do in the not-for-profit sector. One of the partners in the firm, Sharon, she's been a CFO in the not-for-profit sector for many years. And we've actually been helping organisations digitise their finance and ERP systems, get their processes set up so that they're optimised, so that they can reduce waste and improve their performance. And yeah, it's been an interesting exercise, and with the downturn as it's occurring at the moment, we're fortunate enough to be working with some organisations that are using this as an opportunity to get ready for the recovery, rather than shut down. So it's a useful time for us as well, because it again gives us a lot of time to get a few internal processes and methodologies and products fully developed.
All right, thank you. And yeah, I'll reach out to you, David. I think there are some synergies there that are worth exploring in terms of how we might be able to team up to help people. So thank you for that. Gordon, are you able to give us a quick minute intro of yourself, please?
Yes, certainly. You can hear me okay?
We can, yes.
Excellent. I am the treasurer at VMR Brisbane, the not-for-profit rescue organisation. I suppose as a treasurer, I'm looking at nothing coming in anymore, and bills still going out, and some rather big ones. So on that note, I'm just sweating. But like everyone else, we just wait. And as you said before, with the guide dogs, there's just, everyone's got to worry about themselves. So income-wise, has to dry up for a while, and we just concentrate on good communication in our team. Thomas and I in the committee are trying to keep information out every day so that all the volunteers themselves know where they're at, and then from there that the public, I suppose, has confidence in that we are there if we're needed. So.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is about just trying to batten down the hatches for many organisations and seek whatever government assistance is available and whatever is available from landlords to postpone rents and so on. So yeah, a lot of that very common. I will just introduce Kim for her because we've already run a little bit over time of where we want to be. So Kim is my Chief Solutions Architect with 365 Solutions Group. You heard her speak before in terms of helping us get set up with teams. She's the technical guru. I find the opportunities and know that we can solve problems with the tech. She's the one who's tasked with actually making it happen. So Kim's a vital part of our team. Marcos, are you able to give us a quick 1-minute intro on you and who you are, what you do, please?
Yeah, Marcus, I work for a distributor in Australia that does distribution of like cloud softwares. I'm actually the BDM from Microsoft, and my role inside of the business is to drive adoption in the modern workplace, in which Teams includes. Besides the actual fact of like being that part of the organization, I'm also involved with TSI. That's the Tech for Social Impact. That's a campaign driven by Microsoft right now, where we are offering license donation to non-for-profit organizations.
Yeah, so thank you, Marcos. Marcos is here at my request, my invitation to come along and see what we're doing within the NFP Hub, because there are a lot of programs that Microsoft are running to help NFPs during this difficult time in terms of free licensing, etc. So if you want to know more about that, please feel free to connect with Marcos Galtarossa, or if you prefer, if you already have my details, just reach out to me and I'll do an introduction. So Matt, we've obviously covered you. Paul, we've covered you. Sharon, would you be able to give us a quick minute intro on you, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Tristan. So Wise Up Energy Solutions, we are business energy strategists. Controlling your energy will improve your bottom line. So this isn't not just about cost, but also about energy consumption. So we marry a lot of different strategies together, looking at demand management, looking at pricing. So ultimately, we're not just comparing the market. This is energy cost management principles. Those principles will combined put you in the best possible position moving forward. Unfortunately, commercial contracts will still need to be renewed, and I urge any organisation that has large commercial contracts to really look at the environment, to look at the contract end date, and it's not something to leave till the last minute. So having some time will certainly put you in a better position. If I could just briefly mention the assistance package. There may be some of you interested to know that. Residential power bill relief, there will be $200 credited to your electricity bill on the 30th of April, and that's a combination of the Queensland State Government, $100 basically for electricity and $100 towards your water bill. The small business incentive is $500 also paid to your electricity bill on the 30th of April. Now, there will be a lot of small businesses that will fall through that crack, and the crack really does have a lot to do with how your electricity meter is configured and the coding behind that. So if anyone wants to know more, please reach out and I'll check that out for you. Thanks very much, Tristan.
Thank you, Sharon. And last but by no means least, Thomas, we still have you to go. So could you just do your 1-minute intro, please?
Thanks, Tristan. Hi, everyone. I'm the president of Volunteer Marine Rescue Brisbane. As Gordon was saying before, he's the treasurer, and we're both on the committee, obviously. Certainly interesting times at the moment. I unfortunately had to just take a phone call while we're all trying to get into our breakout groups to explain to someone about whether they can go fishing or not. So there's certainly some mixed messages around there at the moment. So what we've done operationally is basically told all our crew to stay at home and just be on call rather than do what we normally do on a crew day and meet at the base and have some breakfast with everybody, and then plan on where we're going to go in Moreton Bay. So, you know, we're all restricted from enjoying the bay at the moment as well, which is a bit of a concern for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. If you like, I'll get in a little tinny and float myself out into the bay, so you've got an excuse to come out.
Yeah. Make sure it's essential, Tristram, or you might end up with a $1,300 fine, I think.
That's not worth it for a day out. Okay. All right, so that's everyone. So I'll just flip back to you, Mac, then. You there, Matt? Looks like Matt might have dropped off. I don't know whether he's done.
I've just come back in. My internet just crashed for 10 minutes.
Oh, there we go.
Just back.
So we just finished going around the table. Everyone's had the chance to introduce themselves. I think it's time to probably just one thing we didn't do is come back from the breakout session and share the thoughts. But I think we probably all kind of got a similar view that, you know, we're in an unknown territory at the moment, and there's a lot of just sort of survival mode going on, and I don't think we're ever going to get back to the new normal is probably the message that we got.
Yeah, I just would like to ask Sharon just to do a quick vote of thanks to Paul, who did a terrific job preparing for today's session, and then we'll wrap it up and sign off. So Sharon, you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks, Matt. Look, Paul, that was absolutely tremendous. It was great to hear about you and your leadership style. 4 things I really took out of your presentation was confidence in leadership, inspiration, accountability, and not to mention empathy. So I just wish, you know, all of you, your families and your teams really, you know, stay well, and thanks, Matt, for organising today. I think this is a great initiative so that we can, you know, come together and still keep this not-for-profit hub alive and well till we can meet and shake hands properly.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon, and thanks, Paul. So just and thank you very much to Tristan for driving the show today. We'll continue to improve this. We're aiming for our next event to be back on its normal Wednesday schedule, which is the 15th of April. And so the schedule, we've got our next 3 months already booked up. So we'll now start getting some invitation and content out. If you can help us by spreading the word for these events, because we're now online, so there's no reason why we can't spread the word through our networks, you know, around Australia and or globally. And we look forward to talking again soon online. And I'd encourage you all to connect with each other once we send out the contact details in the next few days, and to keep this organisation sort of active and engaged as best we can, albeit through the new environment. So thanks, everybody. Stay safe. We'll keep some content flowing through the system, and keep sharing. And thank you to Tristram. So bye for now. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.